Hi friends, welcome to EduTap. EduTap welcomes the aspirants of IBPS AFO 2018-19 examination. Now friends, what we shall be discussing as part of this session today. Basically, let me tell you that we have picked upon a particular topic which is called tillage, right? So this particular topic forms a part of the chapter agronomy, right? So before we move into the session, I just want to tell you that whenever you take a particular topic, or rather whenever you take a particular chapter, it becomes really important for you to understand what kind of questions are usually asked from that particular topic. Okay, only when you know the kind of questions, you will understand the requirement of the examination, and that is what we are going to do in today's session. So first we shall have a look at the questions that were asked from this topic of tillage in the year 2016 and 17. Okay, and then we shall move on and understand the topic of tillage. Okay. Okay, so let us go and into the discussion of past year questions of 16 and 17. So the first question says, power tiller was developed by Japan. It was introduced into India in which year? So if you can have a look at this question, the answer was 1963. Now this is a very fact oriented question. You need not have knowledge about any concept in this particular question, right? So when you come to question, the next question, it says in which tillage the entire field is cleaned without disturbing the crop. Okay, now the answer to this question is zero tillage. Now friends, here you need to understand that you should be aware about the concept. If you do not know what is tillage and what are the various types of tillage, you will not be able to answer this question at all. But again, coming to one important point, that this question of zero tillage requires your understanding on a very superficial level. They haven't gone very deep into the question. So you can understand till now that there is a question which is related to the tillage implements. It is a very fact-based question, right? Then there is a question on the concept of zero tillage. Okay. Next, coming to the question, which of the following is used for primary tillage? Again, you can see they have asked a question on tillage implements. This particular question was asked in the year 2016. Then coming to the next question, no tiller planter, okay, is used for what? So now again, the answer is preventing soil erosion. So here you need to understand that when you take a particular concept, you need to go a layer deep into it. Okay, so first you need to know what are the various tillages. Then you need to know for what such tillages are practiced for. Okay, so you can see we are going a step into the concept when it comes to this particular question here. Okay. Now, the last question that you can see on your screen is which of the following is the manufacturer of Mitsubishi Shakti tillers? Okay, the answer is VST tillers. Again, the question is on tillage implements. So friends, now you must be wondering why are we even listing the questions and just seeing from which area are they covered. See, what happens is, as I told you in the beginning of the lecture, please analyze the questions, understand the requirements of it. Okay, so now we have seen 5 questions that were asked in 2016-17. Now what we shall do is we shall take up the analysis from these 5 questions, and then we shall move into the concept. Okay. Okay, so the key takeaway from the questions that we have discussed is that there are 2 broad areas when it comes to tillage as a topic. Okay, one is a concept area. Okay, the next is a tillage implements area. Okay, so this tillage implement part actually coincides with or overlaps with agricultural engineering. Okay, this is a separate chapter. Okay, so when you're preparing for tillage, either what you can do is, along with the concepts, you can simultaneously do the tillage implements, or you can wait for this particular chapter, agricultural engineering, wherein you will have a section which is on tillage implements, right? So these are the 2 ways in which you can prepare. The other important part is a concept part, as we have seen that we need to be aware about the concept in general. Okay, and we shall just go one step deeper, okay, to understand the necessity for that particular concept. Okay, so when we are done with these two steps or stages, then we would be able to complete this topic in a holistic manner. So this is very important for you to understand. Okay, so let us enter into understanding the concept of tillage. That becomes very important for us, right? So the first thing that you need to understand is a simple thing, a simple definition of what is tillage. See, we might think that this is a very simple question. Why do we even need to know? But in examination, you're not going to get the questions which are very depth, having very much knowledge in deep. No, it is going to be on a superficial level. So that is why I'm telling you to start from the basics. Okay, you will be able to get the concept well, and you will be able to solve the questions keeping in mind these pointers. That is very important. So basically, when you want to sow plants on a particular field, you need to plow the field. Okay, so that manipulation that you perform on the soil is actually termed as tillage. Now you would ask, why is this particular operation performed? See, you need ideal growing conditions for seed germination. Okay, you need the plants to grow well. For all these things, there are various requirements, like you need enough of aeration within the soil, you need enough of water within the soil, and for all these things you need to prepare the soil. So when you talk about this preparation of soil, we are referring to the concept of tillage, right? So without this, we cannot start the seed sowing. Okay, so one disclaimer here, the seeds can be sown without tillage also, but there are certain conditions that need to be fulfilled. We shall see that when we look at the concept of conservation tillage in the subsequent section of our lecture, right? Then coming to the next important concept of what is tilth. Okay, so basically it is referring to the physical condition of soil which is obtained by doing the tillage operations, right? So that is tilth. Then there's one important question that keeps getting repeated, that is, who is the father of tillage? It is Jethro. So kindly just memorize this. You might get a direct question on this as well. Okay, so now coming to the next important part. So as I told you that we shall not be going into the detailed discussion of the topic, but we shall ensure that we are touching upon the important concepts. Okay, in this video we shall not discuss about the tillage implements. Maybe in a later session we shall come up with a short discussion on the tillage implements. Okay, so when you talk about the classification of tillage, there are various bases on which we can classify it. Okay, you can clearly see on your screens. One is based on time, that is with respect to the crop. Okay, when are you performing the tillage operation? Okay, so based on that, it is preparatory cultivation and after cultivation. Based on the season, so for which season are you preparing? Okay, immediate season or a season which would come later, after a later duration. Okay, so that is on season tillage and off season tillage. Okay, then based on the modern concept, or based on which kind of system are we adopting, we refer it to as conventional tillage and conservation tillage. Okay, now what we shall do is we shall quickly go into each of these sections and make sure that we understand these topics in a proper manner. Okay, so coming to preparatory cultivation first. Okay, so this classification is based on time, right? So we can see it is preparatory cultivation and after cultivation. Okay, so preparatory cultivation is before you sow the seeds. Okay, so you're preparing the soil, and after this step you're going to sow your seeds. Okay, and once the seeds are sown, the plants are going to grow, And on the standing crop, whatever practices you perform, those practices are referred as after cultivation practices. Okay. So now what we're going to do is first just see the types of preparatory cultivation. They can be primary tillage, secondary tillage, and layout of seed bed. Okay. Now this layout of seed bed is the third step that is not necessarily performed in all for all types of plants. No, only some plants require layout of seed bed operation. For others, directly after secondary tillage, you can start sowing the seeds. Okay. There are certain plants that require the bed formation. For that, you need to perform the third step. Okay. Now, what we'll do is we'll concentrate first upon the after cultivation tillage practices. Okay, so remember this key word here, that these tillage operations are carried out in the standing crop, right? After, let us see what are the tillage operations. So, thinning and gap filling, weeding and hoeing, earthing up. We also have harrowing, roguing, topping, propping, detrashing, and desuckering. Now friends, you might wonder that there are so many terms that are available here, but what you need to do is be patient. Okay, just try and know each of the terms. Do not go into the details of each. What is required for you is to know on an overall basis what are these terms basically. Okay, and whatever tillage operations that you perform or that you do in the standing crop are referred to as intercultivation practices as well. So kindly make a note of this. You might get a question which says that when you perform tillage operations on a standing crop, what are those practices called? So it is intercultivation practices. Okay, so you need to know this term as well. Now what we'll do is we'll just quickly understand these terms. Now when you talk about thinning and gap filling, from the term itself you need to understand that you are removing the unwanted or the dried up parts of the plant. Okay, and when you say gap filling, see what happens is initially when you're sowing the seeds, you would have a perception that all the seeds would germinate, but it does not happen. Okay, there might be certain situations where few of the seeds do not get proper nourishment and hence they do not germinate. So there might be gaps that would be created between the plantations. So you start sowing the seeds there and you start filling those gaps. That is called thinning and gap filling. Now when are we doing these operations? On the standing crop, okay, after the plants are grown. Okay, then comes weeding and hoeing. So here what you're doing is, in weeding you're just removing the unwanted weeds. Okay, and in hoeing practice what you're doing is you are leveling the soil with your hands, or maybe you're doing certain finer operations with a small tillage implements. Okay, that is called hoeing. Then you have an important operation of earthing up. So here you can see in the picture that near the roots of the soil, what you're doing is you are actually plowing the soil and you are making sure that around the roots there's a lot of soil available. Okay, so that is called earthing up. From one place you're removing the soil and you are accumulating it on all the around the particular roots of a plant. Okay, so that is called earthing up. Then you have harrowing here. Okay, in harrowing what you're doing is basically you are plowing it near the root zone. Okay, then comes roguing. Okay, you are removing a particular variety from the mixed variety of crops. Okay, then there is topping. Okay, so you can see here in the picture that this is the axillary or the terminal bud that is present. So what you're doing is you are removing this terminal bud. Okay, it would ensure the growth of the plant from the tips. Okay, then comes propping. In this picture you can see that the longer roots, okay, the longer branches are tied up with the below branches which are dried up. Okay, now usually this takes place in the plants of sugarcane, okay, banana. Okay, those plants that have large leaves and are widely spaced. Okay, see what happens is when you tie these branches, you can see that there is a balance which is obtained in these plants, because what happens is because of the larger leaves that they have, there might be a situation where the plants tend to incline. Okay, so that is called lodging. Okay, lodging is displacement. Okay, displacement of a plant from its root or stem area. So to prevent that, this tying up is performed and there's a balance that gets created. So this operation is known as propping. Then you have detrashing. Detrashing is the removal of old leaves in sugarcane or maybe other plants as well. Then you have desuckering. So there are certain structures which are called suckers, example in tobacco. So what happens is these suckers are, you can say, vestigial organs, or they actually are not useful for anything. But still what happens is, since they are part of the plant, they keep sucking up important nutrients. So now that is a wastage, right? So what happens is we need to just remove these parts of the plant, and that removal is known as desuckering. Right? Now what we have done is we have seen important intercultivation practices and we know on a broader level what do they mean, right? Okay, now moving on to the preparatory tillage that we were discussing earlier. So as we had seen that the preparatory tillage are actually of three types. Okay, that's primary, secondary and layout of seedbed. Now when you talk about primary tillage, this is the first step or the first operation that you are going to perform on the soil. So basically when you take the soil, you can see that it is compact in nature. Okay, now you need to make that soil loose or friable. Okay, so that air passes through it. You can, when you pour water, it is able to retain that water, right? So we need to open up the soil. So this particular operation that we perform on it is referred to as primary tillage. And how is it done? Basically plows are used. Okay, so you have the implements of country plow, mold board plow, Bose plow, tractor and power tiller. Okay, so as we said, we can take up a separate live session wherein we shall have a look at the various tillage implements. Okay, next we have secondary tillage. Now these are lighter or the finer operations that you perform on the soil after the primary tillage. Okay, so this is the second stage. See, now what happens is after primary tillage, there are many clods that are left behind in the soil. Okay, now these clods are nothing but larger chunks of soil. Okay, now you can have a look at the picture here. You can see these clods. Okay, now these clods are also not good for seed sowing. So what you need to do is you need to break these clods. Okay, for that what you're going to do? You're going to perform secondary tillage operations. Okay, these secondary tillage operations are of two types. One is harrowing and one is planking. Okay, so when you talk about harrowing, what you're doing is you are generally breaking these clods. Okay, and in planking, what you're doing, you are picking up on the hard clods. Okay, and finally you are trying to smoothen the surface as well. So slight compaction is also being done when you do planking. Okay, so talking about the implements that are used, you have harrow, you have cultivator, you have plank and roller. Okay, now the third operation, as I told earlier, these are crop specific operation. It depends upon the requirement. Otherwise, for most of the crops after the secondary tillage, the direct thing that we do is sowing of seeds. Right? Now when we move ahead, we have come to the next classification, okay, based on the season that we had seen. Okay, so we till now what we have discussed based on the timing, that is preparatory cultivation and after cultivation, right? We had seen the various intercultivation practices as well. Now based on the season, it can be on season tillage or it can be off season tillage. So when you talk about on season tillage, you are actually preparing or doing tillage operations for raising the crop in the same season or at the onset of the crop season. Okay, that you're waiting that immediately in the next in the coming cropping season you're going to sow the seeds. So for that you are doing tillage operations and they are called on season tillage. Off-season tillage means you're waiting for the forthcoming main season crop and you have started the preparation earlier. Okay, there is no immediate sowing plans on that particular piece of land. Okay, now this off-season tillage may be post-harvest tillage, it may be summer tillage, winter or fallow tillage, right? Okay, now the third type of classification that we were seeing is based on the modern concepts. So, as I told you that there are two types, conventional and conservation tillage. Now, friends, what happens is whenever you use the term conventional, it means something which has been going on for a long time, the usual method of doing things, right? So, here it is, we are talking about traditional tillage here. Okay, so when you talk about conventional tillage, you are performing all the operations starting from primary tillage, moving to secondary tillage, and then layout of seed bed. Okay, so you are using all the tillage implements possible here. But what happens is we have realized that when you start doing tillage season upon season on a piece of land, there are large hard pans that start forming on the field. So hard pans means they are like, stones of soil. Okay, so because of that stones of soil that are formed because of repeated tillage that you're doing on a particular field, you can see that whenever you pour water, that water quickly gets infiltrated. There is no place for the water to retain in the particular soil area, and because of that, the plants which are growing in that particular soil are not able to take up nutrients. And why is that happening? Because obviously water is the medium through which the plants acquire nutrients, right? So they need to take up water. So now, because of the formation of hard pans, the water drains down and there's leaching of nutrients that is taking place, and the plant is not getting the food, its nutrients. Because of that, the plant dies. Okay, so that is why we can say that over usage of tillage operations is also a no-no. So now we have seen this problem that arises because of the repeated tillage operation. Now what is the solution for it? The solution for it is the modern tillage operations. You can see here. Okay, so that modern tillage operations is referred to as conservation tillage. So what you're doing is you're trying to reduce tillage operations, you're trying to come up with certain other methods to make the soil ready for sowing your seeds. Right? Now, one other important information that you need to keep in mind, which can be seen in boxes, is this is one important technical information. The definition for conventional tillage is you leave less than 15% residue cover after planting. Okay, or you can also read the other part of it by yourself. So basically you need to define conventional tillage in terms of the residue that you leave on the field. Okay, and when you come to conservation, it is the tillage and planting system that covers 30% or more of the soil surface with crop residue after planting. Right? So again, these are the two important definitions that you need to memorize. Okay, so here you can see the picture that when you perform conventional tillage, you can see that there is nutrient leaching that is taking place. We saw it happens because of the formation of hard pans, right? And you can see here on the right hand side, there is this soil after repeated tillage. It is like a stone that is formed, very hard. It is of no use to the plants. On the right hand side, you can see a picture showing conservation tillage. Here you can see that the organisms or microorganisms and other organisms that stay in the soil remain intact, and they help in nutrient retention. The structure of the soil is well maintained, and because of it, there is healthy plant that we can see. Okay, and here in the picture you can see no-till soil. Here you can see there's adequate amount of pores that are available, which help in retaining water as well, plus it helps in good aeration, because of which the organisms also can thrive properly in this particular kind of soil, right? Okay, so quickly we can just have a look at the various conservation tillage operations. First one is the minimum tillage. Okay, so what you're doing in minimum tillage is you are performing the primary tillage operations, but when it comes to secondary tillage operation, you are avoiding this. Okay, so you have minimized the number of tillage operations that you need to perform. Okay, then you come to zero tillage. As the name itself says, it is no tillage operation. Okay, now friends, here you need to understand one thing, that when you start doing tillage operations, as we have seen that hard pans are formed, so because of this there is a lot of soil erosion and runoff that takes place. Now if you minimize your tillage operation, or if you go for zero tillage, you can see that this process of soil erosion is minimized to a great extent. Okay, then comes your stubble mulch tillage. So when you talk about stubble, it is nothing but the roots or the stem portion of a plant. See, what happens is, sometimes when you harvest a plant, you tend to leave the base stem portion along with the roots intact in the field, and when you take up that same patch of land for planting the next crop, what you're doing is you decide to leave these stubbles, okay, and you are not using implements and uprooting them. Okay, so here this is stubble mulch tillage. Okay, now rotary tillage is a tillage where you're using a certain kind of a implement and you're using rotary cut to perform the tillage operations. Okay, then comes strip tillage. You can see here in the picture that in the strips the tillage operations are performed. Okay, so the entire field is not does not come under tillage operation. So in a way you are minimizing the tillage operation. So as I told earlier, when you're talking about conservation tillage, what you're concerned with is minimizing the tillage operations. Okay, then you have the combined tillage. So this particular tillage is such that you are using an instrument which has all the implements together. Like in one go you're performing primary, secondary tillage, and because of that you do not need to run over the field again and again, and thus achieving our end goal of minimizing tillage operations, right? Okay, so the last part of this particular lecture is special purpose tillage. Okay, so as the name suggests, there is a special purpose for which you are performing tillage operations. Okay, let us quickly have a look at it. So first thing is subsoiling. See, you can have a look at this picture where the plants are there. The immediate layer, okay, where the plant is there is known as the plow layer. So usually all the plowing operations are done and the region immediately below the surface. Then you have the deep plow layer, and then there is a subsoil region. Okay, so what happens is, because of repeated tillage operations, there is hard pans that are formed in this subsoil, and because of it there's a lot of difficulty for the roots to take up water from the ground. So because of this, what happens is, we need to perform tillage operations in this subsoil layer at least once in 4 to 5 years. So that is known as subsoiling. When you come to clean tillage, what you're doing is you're ensuring that each and every corner of the field undergoes tillage operation. So when you're taking up a piece of land for tillage, you are making sure that all the plants that are there, or the residues, the stubbles, everything is removed, and then the tillage operation is performed there. Okay. Then comes to blind tillage. This is a tillage that is done in the earlier stages or the developmental stages of a particular crop. Okay. Then comes dry tillage. It is done in plants which have sufficient moisture for it to germinate. Okay. Then comes wet tillage or puddling. So this is basically performed in standing water. Okay, for example, rice crop. Okay, and here one important information that you need to do remember is that the depth of the water is nearly 5 to 10 centimeter. There can be a probable question on this as well, right? Now just a look at the picture here. How is subsoiling going to help us? So you can see that because of subsoiling, the roots, as I said, are able to grow properly, are able to take up water properly. So obviously the plant is going to be healthy. Okay, so some important facts, kindly remember them for your examination. One is the depth of plowing, right? So according to the classification of plowing, which is brought out by Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture, that is CRIDA, you can see that a tabular column is given, the type of plowing along with the depth. Okay, for shallow it is 5 to 6 centimeter, for medium it is 15 to 20, and for deep it is 25 to 30. So please make a note of this, right? And the last information is time of plowing. So this also can act as a probable question, that the optimum soil moisture content for tillage operation is 60% of field capacity, right? So you need to understand that when we say 60% of field capacity is the ideal amount of water that is available for the plants to take up. Okay, and the lowest point is the wilting point. This is not the topic of discussion here, so I would not elaborate on these two terms here, but just understand and just memorize these important facts that we have listed: the depth plus the optimum soil moisture. Okay, friends, so before we end the session here, I would just like to tell you that EduTap has come out with the test series for IBPS AFO 2018-19. Now, this particular test series has been framed or structured keeping in mind the demand of the examination. We have done a lot of study, a lot of research, and then we have come out with 25 full-length mock tests. It contains really 1500 questions. We have also come out with 25 sectional tests which have more than 500 questions. So you can practice a lot of questions which are based on the actual examination pattern, and it would definitely give you an edge in the examination. Now, this particular series can be availed for ₹1499, and to avail the same, you can go to our website, which is www.edutap.co.in. You can also drop us a mail at hello@edutap.co.in. You can also give us a call at 8146207241. So friends, with this we have come to the end of this particular live session. Now the important aim of this session was to give you an idea regarding how to approach a particular topic. So first, what you need to do, you need to analyze the previous year questions that we have done. After analysis, we got a key point that you need to concentrate on concepts as well as tillage implements. Okay, and then we discussed important concepts on a very superficial level. Right. In the next live session, what we shall do is we can take up some of the questions, okay, and discuss them so that you get a understanding as to how do you need to solve such questions. So if you really found this session useful, kindly like, subscribe and share. Till then, friends, thank you so much and happy learning.